I never thought a misplaced thumb tap would change my entire life. David stared at his phone. The message from Ellie, his ex-wife's sister, glowing on the screen. So, you're back in the dating world? His heart hammered against his ribs as 5 years of carefully maintained family peace threatened to unravel in an instant. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories about life's unexpected turns. Your support means everything. David Parker hadn't planned on dating again, not with a 7-year-old daughter to raise and a demanding job as an architectural engineer. His marriage to Rebecca had ended amicably enough 3 years ago, but the aftermath left him focused solely on creating stability for little Sophie. The dating app had been his best friend Marco's idea, installed during a rare night out when Marco insisted David needed at least a glimpse of adult life again. He'd barely opened the app twice, swiping through profiles with mild curiosity rather than genuine interest, until that fateful Thursday night when, exhausted after helping Sophie with her science project, he'd mindlessly scrolled through suggested matches while half asleep on the couch. Ellie Bennett's profile had appeared suddenly, her familiar smile catching him off guard. In his surprise, his thumb had tapped the heart icon before his brain could process what was happening. By the time he realized his mistake, the app cheerfully announced, "You liked Ellie!" And there was no way to undo it. "Dad, why is your face all red?" Sophie had asked, wandering in from her bedroom in unicorn pajamas. "Just tired, sweetheart," he'd mumbled, quickly closing the app and praying Ellie wouldn't notice. But she had. And now her message sat unanswered as David contemplated the complex web of family dynamics he might have just disturbed. Ellie had always been different from Rebecca. Where his ex-wife was methodical and reserved, Ellie was spontaneous and warm. As his sister-in-law, she'd been the fun aunt to Sophie, the one who brought unexpected gifts and took her for ice cream when David and Rebecca were going through their separation. She'd remained in Sophie's life even after the divorce, maintaining a careful distance that respected boundaries while still being present for her niece. David had always appreciated her for that, perhaps more than he'd admitted to himself. "Dad, I can't find my purple headband!" Sophie's voice called from upstairs, pulling David back to reality. "Check your dance bag," he called back, setting his phone down and trying to push thoughts of Ellie aside. But the message lingered in his mind as he helped Sophie get ready for school, as he drove to work, as he sat through meetings. By lunchtime, he knew he had to respond. Ignoring it would only make things awkward the next time they inevitably saw each other at a family gathering for Sophie's sake. With trembling fingers he typed, "Apparently so, though I'm clearly not very good at it. Sorry about that, Marco made me download the app. I didn't mean to make things weird." Her response came almost immediately, "Nothing weird about it. We're both adults. Actually, I've been meaning to talk to you about something anyway. Coffee sometime?" David stared at those words, unsure what to make of them. Coffee seemed innocent enough. "But I've been meaning to talk to you," carried a weight he couldn't decipher. Was there something wrong with Sophie that Ellie had noticed? Was Rebecca upset about something? Or was it something else entirely? "Sure. When works for you," he replied, trying to keep his tone casual. They arranged to meet Saturday morning at a cafe halfway between their homes, while Sophie would be at her weekly art class. As David drove there, his stomach twisted with anxiety. He'd changed his shirt 3 times that morning, settling on a simple blue button-down that Sophie had once said made his eyes look extra blue. "Daddy." The cafe was busy with weekend customers, but he spotted Ellie immediately, seated by a window, sunlight catching in her auburn hair. Unlike Rebecca's straight blonde locks, Ellie had always embraced her natural waves. Today they fell loosely around her shoulders, and she wore a simple green sweater that complemented her eyes. "Hey," he said, sliding into the seat across from her, suddenly feeling like a teenager again. "Hey yourself." She smiled, pushing a coffee toward him. "Already ordered your usual. Black with 1 sugar, right?" "You remembered," he said, surprised. "Some things stick with you," she shrugged. "How's Sophie?" "Growing too fast. Started correcting my grammar yesterday." Ellie laughed, the sound warming something in David's chest that had been cold for a long time. "Listen," they both said simultaneously, then laughed again. "You first," David offered. Ellie took a deep breath. "I wanted to talk to you because I'm moving back permanently. I've been offered a position at the children's hospital here and I've accepted. I wanted you to hear it from me, not Rebecca." David nodded slowly. Ellie had been working at a hospital in Chicago for the past 2 years, only visiting during holidays and occasional weekends. Having her back in town would mean more changes to their carefully balanced family dynamic. "That's great news," he said sincerely. "Sophie will be thrilled." "And you?" Ellie asked, her eyes meeting his directly. The question hung between them, loaded with unspoken meaning. David began, then paused. "I think it's good. For Sophie." Ellie nodded, a flicker of something, disappointment, crossing her face. "Of course, for Sophie." They sipped their coffees, in silence for a moment before Ellie spoke again. "About the dating app," she began. David felt heat rise to his face. "Complete accident. I barely used the thing. That's not what I was going to say," Ellie said quietly. "I was going to say I was surprised to see you on there, but also glad." "Glad?" David echoed. "You deserve happiness, David, after everything with Rebecca. The way you've put Sophie first through all of it. You deserve someone who sees how extraordinary you are." Her words struck him like a physical force. No one had spoken to him like that in years, perhaps ever. Rebecca had been a good partner in many ways, but emotional affirmation had never been her strength. "I don't know about extraordinary," he mumbled, staring into his coffee. "I do," Ellie said simply. "And for what it's worth, I didn't just happen to be on that dating app. I've been trying to move on too." The implication of her words slowly dawned on him. "Move on from—" Ellie met his gaze steadily. "From feelings I shouldn't have had, from my sister's husband." The cafe seemed to fall silent around them. Though logically David knew the weekend bustle continued, his heart pounded in his ears. "Ellie, you don't need to say anything," she interrupted gently. "I never acted on it, never would have. But now, we're both single adults, and when I saw your like, I thought maybe it wasn't just an accident." David's mind raced through years of interactions with Ellie. Her kindness during his marriage, her support during the divorce, the way she'd always connected with Sophie on a level Rebecca sometimes struggled to. Had there been moments when he'd felt something too? Had he buried those feelings so deeply he couldn't recognize them? "I don't know what to say," he admitted finally. "You don't have to say anything now," Ellie replied. "I'm not expecting anything. I just wanted to be honest before I move back. Clear the air. Does Rebecca know about your feelings?" Ellie shook her head. "No. And I'd like to keep it that way regardless of what happens, or doesn't happen, between us. She's still my sister." David nodded, understanding completely. Despite their divorce, he and Rebecca had worked hard to maintain a healthy co-parenting relationship for Sophie's sake. Anything that threatened that delicate balance would need to be approached with extreme caution. "I should go," Ellie said, gathering her purse. "Sophie's class ends soon, right?" "In about 20 minutes, David confirmed, glancing at his watch. "Tell her Aunt Ellie says hi," she smiled, standing to leave. "Ellie, wait," David said, reaching for her hand without thinking. The contact sent an unexpected current through him. "Can we talk again? Maybe dinner sometime?" Her smile brightened the entire cafe. "I'd like that." As David watched her leave, his phone buzzed with a text from Marco. "How'd the coffee date go? Did you explain the dating app fiasco?" David smiled to himself as he typed his reply. It wasn't a fiasco after all. Maybe the best mistake I've ever made. The weeks that followed were a careful dance of text messages, coffee meetings, and occasional dinners when Sophie stayed overnight with Rebecca. David and Ellie agreed to take things slowly, prioritizing Sophie's adjustment to the new dynamic above all else. Their first real date was at a small Italian restaurant on the outskirts of town, far from prying eyes of mutual acquaintances. David arrived early, nervously adjusting his tie in the reflection of his car window. "You clean up nice, Parker," Ellie said, approaching from behind him. He turned to find her in a simple black dress. her hair pulled back to reveal earrings he recognized. He'd helped Sophie pick them out as a birthday gift for her aunt 2 years ago. "You're wearing the earrings," he noted, touched. "They're my favorites," she smiled. "Sophie has excellent taste." The dinner passed in a blur of conversation that flowed effortlessly between them. They discovered shared interests they'd never had the opportunity to discuss before. A love for old black and white films, a secret passion for terrible reality TV shows, the same favorite book they'd both read multiple times. "How did we never talk about any of this before?" David wondered aloud. "Boundaries," Ellie said simply. "I kept them deliberately. Had to." As they walked to their cars afterward, David found himself reaching for her hand. Their fingers intertwined, naturally, as if they'd been doing this for years. "I'd like to kiss you," he said quietly when they reached her car. "But I'm terrified." "Of what?" she asked, stepping closer. "Of how right this feels. Of what it might mean for everyone involved." Ellie nodded, understanding in her eyes. "We can wait." "No," David said, surprising himself with his certainty. "I've waited long enough." Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, and over too quickly. But it confirmed what David had begun to suspect. There was something between them worth exploring, worth the complications it might bring. The real challenge came 3 weeks later, when they decided it was time to talk to Sophie. They chose a Saturday afternoon at David's house, after a morning spent at the park. "Sweetheart, Aunt Ellie and I want to talk to you about something," David began as they sat at the kitchen table with hot chocolate. Sophie looked between them, her 7-year-old intuition already sensing something significant. "Are you getting married?" she asked bluntly. David choked on his drink while Ellie burst into startled laughter. "No, honey," Ellie said gently, "but your dad and I have been spending some time together, and we like each other very much." "Like boyfriend and girlfriend?" Sophie clarified, her expression unreadable. "Something like that," David confirmed. "How would you feel about that?" Sophie considered this seriously, stirring her hot chocolate with intense concentration. "Would you still be my Aunt Ellie?" "Always," Ellie promised. "That won't ever change. And would you be at our house more?" "Sometimes, if that's okay with you." Sophie nodded slowly. "Would Mom be mad?" The question hung heavy in the air. David and Ellie exchanged glances. "Your mom wants everyone to be happy," David said carefully. "But we need to talk to her about this too. It might take some time for everyone to adjust. Like when you and Mom got divorced and I had to adjust to having 2 houses?" Sophie asked. "Something like that," David agreed, his heart aching at her matter-of-fact acceptance of adult complications. Sophie was quiet for a long moment before declaring, "I think it's okay. Aunt Ellie makes good pancakes, and Dad smiles more when she's here." The simplicity of her approval brought tears to Ellie's eyes. "Thank you, Sophie. That means a lot to me." "Can I go finish my Lego castle now?" Sophie asked, already sliding off her chair. "Sure thing, sweetheart," David smiled, watching her skip away. "That went better than expected," Ellie whispered once Sophie was out of earshot. "The easy part," David sighed. "Now for Rebecca." Telling Rebecca proved every bit as difficult as they'd anticipated. David arranged to speak with her alone when she came to pick up Sophie the following weekend. "You and Ellie?" Rebecca repeated after he explained, her expression a complex mixture of emotions. "My sister and my ex-husband? I know it's a lot to process," David said gently. "We didn't plan this." Rebecca paced his living room, arms crossed tightly. "How long has this been going on?" "Not long. A few weeks. Nothing happened during our marriage, Rebecca. I need you to know that." She stopped pacing to look at him directly. "I believe you." Ellie wouldn't do that. After a pause, she added, "Neither would you." David felt a weight lift slightly at her words. Despite their differences, they had always maintained a basic trust. "Is it serious?" she asked finally. "It could be," he admitted. "We're taking it slowly, especially for Sophie's sake." Rebecca nodded, processing this. "Sophie knows?" "We told her yesterday. She seems okay with it." A sad smile crossed Rebecca's face. "She's always adored Ellie." They sat in silence for a moment before Rebecca spoke. "Again, I need time with this, David. It's unexpected." "Of course," he agreed immediately. We can adjust anything that makes you uncomfortable. Rebecca shook her head. No. You both deserve happiness, just give me time to adjust. As she left with Sophie that evening, David felt a profound gratitude for the woman who had once been his wife. Despite the pain their relationship had caused them both, they had somehow found their way to a place of mutual respect. The months that followed brought a gradual integration of their lives. Ellie began joining them for movie nights and weekend outings. Sophie delighted in having her aunt more present in her daily life, often asking Ellie for help with homework or art projects that required a steadier hand than David's. Their first major hurdle came at Sophie's 8th birthday party, the first family gathering where David and Ellie would be openly together in front of extended family and friends. Are you sure you're ready for this? David asked as they sat in his car outside the bowling alley where the party was being held. Ellie reached over to straighten his collar. Are you trying to talk me out of it? Never. He smiled, catching her hand and kissing her palm. Just checking. Inside, Rebecca had already set up decorations and was directing the staff about cake placement. She stiffened slightly when she saw them enter together, but offered a polite smile. Sophie's with her friends by lane 3, she informed them. She's been asking for you both. The party progressed with only minor awkwardness. David's parents, who had always been fond of Ellie, seemed unsurprised by the development. Rebecca's mother was notably cooler, keeping her distance throughout the event. Give her time, Rebecca murmured to Ellie when she noticed her sister's hurt expression. Mom's always been protective. It was a small olive branch, but significant. David watched the brief exchange between the sisters, with hope that their relationship might survive this unexpected turn. As summer turned to fall, their relationship deepened. Ellie's work at the children's hospital kept her busy with irregular hours, but she made time for Sophie's school events and David's company whenever possible. David found himself looking forward to evenings when Ellie would come over after her shift, still in scrubs, to collapse on his couch and share stories of her day while he cooked dinner. You know, he said one such evening as they washed dishes together, I never expected to feel this way again. What way? Ellie asked, bumping his hip playfully with hers. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, he said simply. Their first major fight came in November, over something so trivial neither could later remember what started it. But the underlying tensions, the complexities of their situation, the stress of navigating family dynamics, the fear of hurting those they loved, all bubbled to the surface. Maybe this was a mistake, Ellie had said in the heat of the moment, tears streaming down her face. Maybe we're kidding ourselves that this could ever work. The words had struck David like physical blows. Do you really believe that? Her silence had been answer enough. She'd left his house that night, and for 3 days they didn't speak. It was Sophie who inadvertent